All right. Tonight's podcast is only me. Breck is away with a friend. It is Breck's birthday in about a week and a half. Anyway, so she's got this overnight thing she's doing with a friend. So I said to her as she was pulling out of the driveway, I said, tonight I'm running solo. I'm not going to let this podcast go to waste. I enjoy talking. Regardless of whether there's someone else there with me or not. Like I've said before, I record myself all the time, so this is actually something that's not awkward, uncomfortable for me. I think now the difference is I'm recording with the intention of it being delivered to somebody at some point. So that being said, it's just me tonight. I'm changing up. I feel like at the beginning of each of these podcasts has been me talking about our setup, but I just want to address it as we're like narrowing it down. I think Breck mentioned last night that I should just stop talking about it because it will always change. But that being said, I wanted to try. So last night we faced each other at the end of this table. I didn't like that as much. There's definitely an element of, I think the gesture of like turning to face someone is it kind of is welcoming, and it still opens up. I don't know. I enjoyed more of a straight on view. I thought the table was nice in this setting. I'm still sitting on my Lego box, or the kids Lego box. So if the weight of me sitting here blows out the lid and all the Legos go everywhere, then that will be unfortunate. I definitely need to get this. Basically, this table is counter height, so I need to get. We don't have any stools in the house. All of our tables are normal desk height. So anyway, tonight, let's see. Today, I took the kids to the pump track. Briar did ballet, and then we hung out at the pump track, which was kind of fun. It's cool. I've been watching. It's fun to have our kids be into biking and then show up and ride. It's been fun too to watch the boys, I think more Miles specifically, but the boys end up connecting really well with like the teenagers. And so there's always kind of a point where it's like the 14, 15, 16-year-olds are really awesome in this town also. So they always kind of like end up hanging out. They're doing jump lines. I think it's because our boys are pretty confident riding, and so they're able to like ride almost at that level. Like they're able to jump gaps and do tricks at what maybe like a progressing 14-year-old would ride. So not that they're like crazy good or anything. I think they're just have been trying stuff a lot more than most kids their age. So it's fun. There was a kid there tonight that was riding. And we've seen him around, and apparently he was out downhill as well, which is kind of cool. Anyway, it was cool because he and Miles and Maverick were just like riding the whole time, coming up with jump lines at the pump track. If you don't know what a pump track is, basically it's kind of a track with like all these humps to it and berms, and the whole idea is you can theoretically drop in and ride it like over and over and over, and the momentum from you like pumping your bike on the downturn of the bumps basically generates speed. So you should theoretically be able to like generate speed, pick up speed, and like get faster without needing to pedal and like continue laps. Essentially, it's a good workout. It's fun. There's and basically the way they design these pump tracks is there's a lot of different ways you can like jump and cross and transition or transfer. So that was fun. Tonight we came back home, we made dinner, and we watched Surf's Up, which is kind of a fun movie. And it's basically like these penguins that are surfers, and this one penguin is kind of the underdog, goes through this like journey of like wanting to be the best, but then realize it's not about surfing, it's not about the competition and winning, it's about having fun and like enjoying the journey, but still like getting better, which was kind of cool. And kind of what like Breck and I talk about this all the time, about how like pursuing success is something that sounds like a good idea, but I feel like the more you're around it, the more it's like, like, what am I doing? What am I sacrificing all of this for? And this is something that we've talked about for a long time and I wanted to talk about it tonight. And I definitely want to talk about this again with her, because we do have, we're different people, different personalities, so we have a little bit different take on this. But I guess for me, being able to process this is helpful. And just even, I guess, saying it out loud or processing it out loud is sometimes helpful, just like getting it out of your mind and onto a video or a paper or whatever, however you end up processing. But basically, we've thought about this for a while, is like, is it possible to, like, are we meant to be famous? And like success and fame typically coexist in our society, at least. And obviously, like, you can have like a wholesome approach to success. I'm like, well, success to me is, I'm talking about like the stereotypical, like, getting to the top, you're a winner, not a loser success model. That typically coexists with, fame, or someone that people look up to in a, because of their successes, I guess. So is it possible, or are we meant to be famous? Are we meant to be successful? And this conversation comes up actually quite a bit because we are in the digital age. We're around other creators that would be considered, famous to some degree. BreckyBreck at a certain point could be within that category, and that's something that we continue to challenge ourselves and figure out, like, are we meant, is this healthy for us, meaning Breck and I and our family? Is this healthy for us to desire it? And what does that do to the rest of, the people in that journey? Even, is it healthy for us to allow ourselves to be successful or famous, if you will? What does that do to the people that we're like blessing with our success or with our fame? Like, I'm going to bless you with my presence or the deliverable of the thing that makes me famous. And maybe this is pretty like, I'll try not to get like super introspective on this. But basically, I feel like there's a common and pretty well-known path of someone pursuing success. And we see it in pop culture. Or I guess we see it in Hollywood. We see it in example after example after example of people that kind of go through this journey. They have a rise to the top. Whether or not they have a fall, there's majority of the time there's a point where someone that did rise to the top has a point of reflection and says, this wasn't worth it. And when you're not up there, it's easy to say, like, oh, if I had millions of dollars, then it would be better than this. And what's funny is, like, I'm now, not that we have millions of dollars, definitely don't, but I think we've kind of like had a taste of a little bit here, a little bit there. We had a good year last year from a financial standpoint, and it was underwhelming and very unfulfilling in comparison to years previously, where we're like, man, X, Y, Z amount of money would solve all our problems. They're definitely still working. It just kind of clicked on me weird. Testing. Looks to be working. I believe, and you hear people say this, there definitely is like a threshold where it's like, yeah, like, 80,000 or something is like a good threshold for a family to like have a little bit of excess, like the weight of where the next dollar is coming from is off your back. But there's definitely, like, I think a challenge in finding value beyond that. So anyway, this Surf's Up movie was kind of cool, because basically there was this, the story is pretty cliche or like typical Hollywood story. there was this famous surfer penguin that rose to the top, everyone idolized, and then it mysteriously disappeared, and people assumed that he died. He didn't die. He went and kind of became a recluse, lived in the woods, kind of just was trying to get back to enjoying life and the simpler things, kind of let himself go. And basically, like, towards the end of the movie, basically had to face his trauma of this surf culture. He wouldn't touch a surfboard, blah, blah, blah. Finally had to face it, and then was able to just simply enjoy what got him into it in the first place. And I think about, I say this all the time. I'm going to write it down because I'm now realizing this topic's growing on me. But I always say, we, I think in our culture, idolize running our own business or like making money off the thing we love so that we can do it more often. I'm realizing, like, over the years, and I've said this for a few years now, there's a reality of selling your creativity, sell your creativity so much to other people that it burns you out. And I really, there was a beauty when I worked manual labor. There was a beauty, like, there was a desire to create. I had a desire to create. I was hungry for it. And so I would go to work and not exercise my creative muscles. So I'd get off work, like, I'd have these points of, like, longing for creating. And it was like, I just need to create something. And it was, like, passionate and it was fun. I went through obviously this transition. I started creating and started making money from it. But what happened was I basically tried to replace my income and the structure in which I lived by creating. And so what happened was I ended up having to, like, sacrifice the true love of what I was creating to fit it into a box that still made sense to pay the bills, for example. And what's happened over the years with, like, website design specifically is, like, I love making websites. Like, I do it all the time, like, for fun. It's crazy how often I make websites for fun. Like there's a mountain bike race series that had, like, an old website. We went to their series, and one night, I had a beer or something and had some extra time, and I designed a whole website for them, like, head to toe. It was awesome. I reached out to them and said, like, hey, do you want this? Like, let me help you give it to you. And, like, that was it. Like, and so, there's been many situations like that, where it's like, that's the like the fun side of the creative journey. But by doing it so much, and like having to work within the confines of other people's desires, and I have to because it pays the bills, and if I don't, it won't pay the bills. And I think so many people go through that and have to make a decision for themselves. And I think that's what we see in pop culture, whether it's music artists. Selling out is typically the term we use for that transition. And I've always been really fascinated with people that gave up what was perceived as the ideal success before they had a fall from grace, if you will. I remember there was these people don't get talked about in pop culture. It's not a desirable move. It's like, wait, why'd you? There was a baseball player that did it, and I need to research it again. It's been a minute since I've looked into it, but basically it was like super good baseball player, made it, like sacrificed his youth to be good, went through college, made it to the major leagues, was a good pitcher, and then, like, only 2 years in the league, like, retired and, like, bought a farm and became a farmer. And I'm sure he made good money, and so, like, that helped. By having money, it's definitely, like, easier to start to make, like, a retirement decision like that. But I was fascinated with that journey because that's atypical. That's something that is not the normal pathway for people. It's like you've made all this sacrifice, like you got to cash in on that for like as long as you can. You got to milk it. And so I've always been fascinated by that, and I think because of that, I've always tried to, and I alluded to this during one of our earlier episodes, I try to like speed run, like just process speed run through like the things that we decide to do with our family, or like the work I decide to do. So it becomes challenging because, I'll basically try to like play that whole movie out in my head of like, all right, this is what feels good right now. What's going to feel good tomorrow, and what's going to like be fulfilling, I guess, not necessarily just feel good, but what's going to be fulfilling tomorrow, and what's going to be fulfilling 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. And there's another version, or there's another perspective to that, is like, is that fulfilling to me solely, or is that fulfilling to me and the people around me? And if it can kind of check those boxes, it can last maybe a little bit longer. If it can't check those boxes, I'm pretty quick to remove things from my plate. And I think I end up being pretty non-committal in that capacity, because it's like, hey, this is not, I see the challenges that are ahead of me for this particular venture, if you will, are not things that I'm worth, or I'm willing, they're not worth sacrificing for. The max potential outcome, or maybe even the realistic. So I tend to paint the spectrum there because I'm pretty optimistic. So if I can't even justify it at its max potential outcome, meaning, I came up with a business idea, and best case scenario, this business idea will provide me XYZ. If that XYZ is still something that's like, that's not even that fulfilling to me and the people around me, then I'm not even going to, like, I will quickly lose motivation for that venture. And I think this works in harmony with this idea of, are we meant to be famous? Are we meant to be successful? Because there's always this point of where we find our value. And, there's a difference between like having people look up to you and being famous. I think you can be famous without necessarily stepping into the light simply because you are setting an example. But typically the people that do that wholeheartedly or truly are typically people that like we hear about after their life. It's not something they're promoting and trying to like put out into the world. So I struggle with that, and that's something that Breck and I struggle with, because I get pretty I'm pretty optimistic for the most part, but this is something that I get pretty discouraged around, this idea, and I think I can talk to BreckyBreck specifically for a second. I get pretty, I get to a point where I'm like, man, we're creating this product that is Breck and her face, and it's her, and then we're promoting it. We're turning around and making posts and telling people, hey, consume this product, essentially is what it is. And obviously I'm boiling it down for the sake of playing devil's advocate in this situation, but we're delivering a product. And so to continue to pursue pushing that, I start to just question, like, is this something that's even healthy for us, for our family, the people around me? And then, you take it one step further. It's like the creative deliverable that I'm providing, or we are providing in this situation, BreckyBreck, and videos and like the content. Is this even healthy for the people consuming it? So it gets tricky, because basically what I end up doing is turning on my own work, and I end up breaking it down. And it's funny, because I think Breck's got to a point where now she has to like kind of watch me, and it's almost like, to paint maybe a picture here, it's like we've built something physical, and it's like a structure, or tower of something. We're building a physical building together, and like I have skills, Breck has skills, other people are coming in and consulting and contributing to it. And it's on display, maybe in a museum, or like it's on display. And I feel like Breck is like has to put up like security cameras and like be on guard for not for like external vandalism or people coming and stealing it. It's for me, like in the middle of the night, coming with a baseball bat and just tearing it all down. And so I think like I recognize that I get this way. I think it's important to have people in your life that can do that. But I definitely see that it can be unhealthy, and I can do it to a degree that's extreme and ends up not benefiting anything. And so, like almost like, well, if we're not building anything and you're just like sitting in the wreckage, is it better to sit in the wreckage or to at least like, you don't know that it's for sure going to be a bad thing. You just like think it could be a bad thing. And now, is it worth tearing it all down and sitting in the wreckage and not without having something else that you're that you do want to build? And maybe it doesn't need to be on display, but so I don't know. Like I'm super deep on this, and this is the challenge I think when like processing without Breck here for the podcast is I definitely get pretty deep in this conversation. So maybe I'll take a transition, talk about something else for a second. We rent this house, and we've always rented. We never owned a house, and we have kind of a love-hate relationship with renting. I think for the most part, we're pretty happy with it because it kind of helps us stay free from this entity on many fronts, in terms of traveling or wanting to leave. We're not necessarily tied to something. And then on the other side of it, we're not responsible for, if something internally goes wrong. For the most part, that's something that, we're able to like reach out to the landlord. And we've always had pretty good landlords that take care of the houses. So, there's been small things like that end up, kind of teetering on the line of like preferential, whether or not it's something like they want to be done. Like it technically still works. And I think this house has been that a little bit. It's like, hey, this carpet literally is the original carpet. It's disgusting. It stinks. Like when we have people over, this specific room would be perfect for guests, but it's just kind of like musty to sleep in or spend a lot of time in. We're used to it now, but like the whole house is basically kind of like that. Different things, the wallpaper is kind of old or falling apart, or whatever. So that being said, it's funny because I think I'm like like a typical man. Like I have the desire to fix things. Like I have a deep desire or longing to get to that point, to fix things, to do yard work. I love mowing the lawn. Like that's like therapy for me. When the grass is growing good, we're almost back to that. We're coming out of the summer now, so it's starting to get green and grow again. I love just going and like mowing the lawn. There's something about just like the white noise and like seeing clean lines and coming through. That's something that's really nice. But I hate what I don't like is like the rest of the yard work, edging and like walking by our garbage cans. It's like there's grass and weeds growing up. I'm like, like this just keeps going. And this is something that I'd just rather not deal with. And I feel that way with our cars are the same. It's like there's just always something, whether it's small or big, there's always something, and it's just irritating. Especially with young kids, it's like, they'll the kids will like be messing around and break a light in the car or something, or like literally today, like the little cup holder in our truck, Greta stepped on it walking by and it just like snapped it, and I'm like, this is so annoying. It's super inconvenient and annoying, and it's just like slowly all of the things are just like falling apart. And I'm not the type of person that's like, yeah, I want to work on my truck. I want to open the hood and get my hands dirty. Granted, I feel good after spending that time of doing that. But I'm not excited about it. I'm not like, I don't care about like the tuning of my truck. Like I want my truck to run and I don't need to make it run. Like for oil changes, I take it to Jiffy Lube. It's like for tire changes, it's like I take it to Les Schwab. Not that I'm even like completely hands off as much as I'm just like, I don't have a desire to do this. And so it ends up being difficult because I tend to neglect things. So like the truck right now, we definitely need new tires. There's an expense element to it as well, but I think because I don't care about it, it ends up like I have to find that balance between like prioritizing it as a responsible like one of my responsibilities basically. So it's hard. And then there's definitely like back to the house. There's definitely times where I like wish we owned something because I want to like bust out a wall or like switch something out or like paint a wall without having to kind of go through the hoops of a landlord and that negotiation process. But like the backyard, like I would tear up the backyard and put like bike jumps all over the place, which we kind of had, but like in a recoverable way right now. So yeah. Oh my gosh, this is exhausting. So I just recorded, I don't know, probably, well, let's see. I just talked for like half an hour and it was not recording. And that's frustrating. I'm using pretty much a different setup every single time. But it's also exhausting because I'm realizing without having Breck here or someone else here, there's, it ends up becoming exhausting because there's not someone to like kind of take over and like give me a break and kind of this ebbs and flows, and then also even contribute to I think when you have someone else there, you tell the story differently to where you're like telling it for that person, like to the level of that person's comprehension. Whereas when I talk to myself, and I'm realizing this even recording tonight, is typically when I record for myself, which I do it all the time, honestly, all the time, I don't ever think about ever sharing that. And so the style in which I talk is like pretty like not really like, it's not like how I would have a conversation with someone. It's like like I just kind of like throw up the contents of my brain basically. So like tonight I'm like finding myself exhausted because, well, first of all, I've been really tired lately. It's crazy. I think this busy summer is catching up to me. Also, I'm like pretty stressed out right now about work and just kind of what's next, and you know, this big question mark just over this next season. So I'm pretty tired. Also, I'm exhausted right now because of how tricky this is. Anyway, so basically I'm going to power through. I'm not going to have any time commitment or anything. And I'm going to just put that in the book for like, that is a podcast by myself. And so if that's to the detriment of this conversation, then I'll make it short and sweet so I don't waste your time. So for that half an hour that I did talk, I was talking about hobbies and too many hobbies, and how I think a lot of times people hold on to things that maybe they should let go of. Specifically hobbies. So we ride bikes. I used to play pickleball all the time, and pickleball is an example of a hobby that I've kind of let go of. Not that I got rid of my stuff, or I will never play again, or that I don't play, but I removed the expectation of fulfilling my needs through pickleball on a regular basis. And I think, you know, kids play a big part in that. My kids are not very interested in pickleball. It's not something that like accomplishes or fulfills more than myself and our family. And so what I started to do is think about, you know, what are there other things that can accomplish the same fulfillment that I get from pickleball, but would also contribute to other members of our family. And basically we started biking, and biking ended up, we were able to start doing that. So like BMX, for example, Breck and I were talking about this the other day. It's like we can, kill multiple birds with one stone. We're doing an activity as a family. We're hanging out. We are exercising. So there's two. We're hanging out with other people in our community. And what's nice is like we've been inviting other friends to BMX. So it's like, do you want to hang out with us? We'll be at BMX these days. Come to BMX and you can hang out with us. So it's like we can add as many people to that as we want. I'm gonna let the cat inside. The cat's scratching. Come on, cat. Come here. Hey. You gonna be on the podcast? Come here. Go. Whoa. Now I'm not alone. I'm talking to somebody. So this is Frankie. We'll let him walk around the table here. He is 16 years old. Breck's had him since she was 14. He's like a dog. He's going to walk across my screen. Here, don't walk across my screen. Walk around. Can you walk around? Thank you. Anyway, BMX community. And then the other element is recently we started volunteering. So now there's kind of a contribution element. Like we're fulfilling like this give back, or, this like we're able to like as a family contribute our time and serve this community with our time. So I enjoy that, and I think this has been eye-opening for me, especially when trying to balance like what we need to get into. I look at a lot of my friends that have a ton of toys in their garage, and when you have kids, young kids, it's like, hold on a sec, I gotta let the cat out of this room now. When you have young kids, it's not realistic to do all of these hobbies. And I think, I'm grateful, and I know Breck and I are both grateful for this. Like, we had kids young, and so we didn't really build up, like, this expectation for what our life looks like, and then have kids come in and ruin that. We're kind of, like, building with them now. And so I had to burp. I'm burping so much when I'm talking like this, which I'm realizing I probably burp more often than I realize throughout the day. I'm just more aware of it during these conversations. Anyway, so because we never, aside from like high school sports and stuff, we had kids pretty early. We didn't have these like adult hobbies that were just a part of like the fulfillment of our everyday lives. And so the kids didn't necessarily take away from that. All we had to do was figure out how to find something that was fulfilling. So you can take a look at someone's garage and kind of see what kind of hobbies they're based on their garage, or not even hobbies. What I guess not someone. I'll say a man. You can take a look at a man's garage and understand how they spend their time based on the contents of their garage. I have friends that have a garage full of toys, meaning, snowboards and bikes and paddle boards and surfboards and skateboards and all the motorcycles and everything. And then I also have friends with garages full of projects, like fixing things up, cars and motorcycles and engines and like furniture and Pinterest idea stuff. And what's funny is like that the contents of a lot of my friends' garage is a direct reflection of how they spend their time. And I think what is an interesting look at that even concept is there, when you look at someone with the contents of their garage and they have kids, is there a representation for like the kids being a part of those things? Because if not, then it probably means they're spending their time without the kids doing those things. And not that that's like universally applicable or not, but like for us, it's like we have bikes. We have so many bikes, and then we have camping stuff. bikes and camping stuff. That's pretty much it in our garage. We have like some archery bows, and we shoot in the backyard every once in a while, but that's not something that's once in a blue moon. And like that's kind of it. Yeah, a ton of bikes, like 20 bikes. And like, not to toot my own horn here, but I have one bike. 1 out of 20 of those are my bikes, and mine doesn't even work. So it's like I definitely want a working bike, so I'm not saying like, oh, sacrifice everything you can for your family, as much as it's like, find something that you can do together, and then like figure out a way to like fulfill your needs in tandem with your family's needs. And I think if you can figure out a way to do that, it may not always look like what you want it to look like, but if you can figure out a way to have that double dip going on, then I think you will, have an opportunity to healthily grow as a family. So anyway, that's what I want to talk about tonight. We'll see if I'm even recording. Yep, I'm still recording. Sweet. So yeah, this was first podcast without Breck. And it was difficult. So can't wait to have her back. She'll be back tomorrow. We have a busy weekend coming up, so we'll see if we even have energy to do a podcast these next couple of nights. We never really even talked about like the commitment to it, as much as it's just kind of been like something that's, we get to like kind of process and talk together and spend time together. But yeah, this next couple of weeks we have big BMX races going on. For the kids are racing in the Northwest Gold Cup finals. And it's hosted at our track. So we are volunteers there. We run the live stream and social media and like video content for them. And so we're going to be pretty busy this week, both with obviously helping. The boys are racing. Briar decided not to race, and Greta's not quite racing yet. So the boys are racing. We'll be busy with like helping facilitate them. My parents and my grandparents are coming in from out of town. They're staying at an Airbnb, so they won't be here. But it's just going to be busy. So who knows? We may take a few nights off. But yeah, that's where we'll be. So anyway, thanks for hanging out with me tonight. And yeah, we'll see you on the flippity flop.